Dear MK,
Can you help me?
oh my god, you'll never believe what happened.
I need advice.
Thank you, MK.
Welcome to the Dear MK podcast.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well, welcome back to Dear MK.
It's been a minute.
For us.
For us, we haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only been a week for them, which it always is.
Oh, I know. Actually, I kind of forgot that we didn't post last week. Kay
I
was
forgot too.
unwell.
It was not good. It was just head in the toilet.
Which, anyways, I felt like it was fine, though, because we did have such a heavy episode
Yeah, I was thinking
that
that.
last aired, and did you have a lot of people reaching out to you?
I didn't have a ton reaching out to me, but I think that was... There's just been, like, a lot, I feel like, going on in the community, and I feel like that was, like, a pivotal story that got told and was like, hey, we're doing this on this platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have people necessarily reaching out to me about that specific episode, but when people were reaching out or discussing just kind of things going on right now, it was like, okay, you need to hear this. Like, This is what we're doing, and I think it was helpful for a lot of people that way.
I felt the same with literally just everything going on, and I was in schools the last few weeks, and a lot of people were like, I don't really, like, understand what's happening, or, like, what Title IX even does, and things like that. So I was like, honestly, if you want to hear a good story of what it's like to be a survivor in college, let alone someone's first weekend
Yeah.
in college, and how the system can be unjust, like, give it a good listen. But I did have a lot of people reach out to me, just being like, this is crazy.
Yeah, my dad's been listening now that we're on YouTube, because he's
That
not
is
really
so sweet.
he's not really on the streaming services, I guess, but he's been listening to the episodes, and we were chatting, and he was like, I didn't have time to listen to last week's yet, but, you know, the first two have been very impactful, and I was like, the first two are nothing. In terms of impactful. If you want to hear a story, he was like, okay, I definitely have to give it a listen.
That's amazing. Yeah, I had, like, friends and family listen, and then even just, like, students at schools reached out being like, I can't believe this happened, and I'm so angry about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were also just like, damn, she's so strong.
Yeah, our upcoming guest, I don't know if she'll be next episode or a few episodes from now, she actually reached out to me and was like,
really?
I cannot believe this. And I was like, girl, I know. And this is coming from someone who does have a story that they are going to share with us soon. So it's like, you'd think that was the kind of viewer that would be less surprised by this kind of thing. But even she was like, holy shit.
That's actually such a good point. I think she was listening in, like, the shower or something, and I was literally just in the shower. She texts me, she goes, can I call you? And I'm like, yep, I know exactly what she's gonna say. And I just, like, answered the FaceTime. We were both in our bathrooms, so I was like, wow, we're doing the same thing right now. We were, like, sitting down doing, like, just, like, post-shower, like, routine.
Skincare.
Yeah, skincare. But I think that's such a good point, and for anyone that hasn't listened, I feel like you need to go listen.
Yeah.
Which also just, like, brought up for me everything that's going on. Now, I know episode 1 we were like, we'll only talk about politics if it relates to what we do.
It does.
A lot. Technically, like, you could argue for a lot, but I did want to bring up Title IX again. I'm like, Again. So what was called new rule that was implemented, last, like, spring or late? We've had it for 5 months, not even then.
Yeah.
We had it for
very
5
recent, because I remember talking about it on an episode not long ago.
Basically, like, anyone in this industry has been fighting for the new rule under Title IX for years. They were fighting since the 2020 change under Trump's, like, last administration changed it. Basically, so, like, almost a full 4 years. It took the whole term of Biden to get them to implement the new rule. So it's been in place for 5 months, and then, of course, the second that Trump basically is in office again, he reverts it back to the 2020 Title IX policies.
Yeah, can you explain
Does
the
that make
difference?
sense? I was going to, but I wanted to, like, get the
Yeah.
I wanted to get the timeline for you. I actually have a good site, so I'm gonna link this for anyone. I want to make sure I get like the terms right, but I feel like you can also like add in because we've talked about this. We've talked about this in like season 1 when it did change, and it was a very exciting thing for us. So to have that turnaround so quickly obviously is just sad. But I'm currently, just so you know, I'm looking at National Women's Law Center. So it's called Justice for Her, Justice for All. That's their like motto, but they do a really good job of explaining laws, and they actually have like a whole fact sheet so you can see like the differences and changes, which I thought was just a really amazing resource. So let's see. So Trump administration harmful 2020 Title IX rule regarding sexual assault on school campuses, and reinstate protections under the Biden administration 2024 Title IX rule. So it seeks to, let's see, sorry, I want to just make sure I'm like getting the highlights of this. The lawsuit initially was filed by conservative states seeking to undermine Title IX by striking the rule's protection for LGBTQIA plus students, particularly transgender students. So within the new rule from 5 months ago, it basically then included people in those communities, and that also included pregnant women, or if you had just had a child and you're a student on campus. It just includes protections for those groups, which you would think like they were already there, you already should. And then it also reinstates harmful policies that dismiss and mistreat survivors of sexual assault, including giving schools permission to once again ignore sexual harassment claims. So it basically made things, I'm trying to get the, sorry, I'm doing a horrible job at this right now, but I wanted to get the actual like fact sheet. But it talks about you need it to be severe and pervasive, right? So essentially, like the wording underneath the old law, which is now the current law, makes it harder for survivors to get the help that they need. Because essentially, if someone says, well, to me, like this doesn't seem severe and pervasive, they technically wouldn't have to help you. But also, even in saying that, like anyone that's in these positions should still be helping like anyone that came to them. It kind of just gives loopholes. And also I know that under that administration, it included like activities off campus. So if something happened off campus, if you were studying abroad, if you were at like a party off campus, whatever that means, then they could also say, well, oh, that didn't happen on campus, so we don't need to give you like these supportive measures. I'm trying to think.
Very recently, in that past kind of 5 months, policies changed as well about coercive control in courts. So
that was, yeah.
You know, if this whole idea of severe and pervasive a lot of times doesn't pertain to coercive control, because it brings us back to the point, well, I didn't get hit or raped, so I didn't think I was being abused, that kind of mindset. And coercive control is all of that mental and emotional manipulation that isn't, you know, your very cut and dry physical abuse. So we just had gotten to the point where that was recognized in courts, and it was helping with like the 209A, which is the restraining order.
It was already in November.
Yes, it was so recent. So that isn't directly under Title IX because that's in the court system. That's not as much about like civil.
But that's a perfect way of saying like
it's a direct correlation.
Yeah, because again, like even if somebody was, let's say, I'm like, what exactly do I want to say here? Even if it was something like someone's like, okay, it wasn't actually like rape, but this happened to me, or like they've been manipulating me and like forcing me to do all these things that I don't want to do, and someone could just be like, well, that's not severe and pervasive in my opinion.
Exactly.
So that's where it's really messed up. But also this like gave me the reminder of the third part that I wanted to mention. So within this as well, it makes it harder for survivors to seek justice because they basically want survivors to go face to face with their perpetrator and saying what happened, and getting like a formal complaint and the resources that they need. So obviously if you're going to have to face your perpetrator, like so many survivors are not going to want to do that.
No.
For like, why would you want to do that? That's insanely triggering. Also, I know under Obama, he originally was like the one that said you need to look at complaints within 60 days. So like this needs to be solved within 60 days. So I'm pretty sure that probably is out as well.
Probably.
So the laws they're long, and I don't honestly want to read out all of them, but I feel like just like those quotes that I read give you the idea of what's happening, and then I'm going to post this underneath our description of the episode so you can actually go and read all of the laws and what it means. But what's really harmful about what's happening right now is I think originally when it was taken back, I don't remember like the rhetoric around it, but now it's protect women. Oh, Trump's doing this to protect women. Like, I spent 48 hours last week literally just reading up on like all the different articles and kind of getting like, okay, where are people's stances, what's actually happening within schools, are people fighting against this, which they are. Even this website, like I said, National Women's Law Center, like they are currently going to court. Trying to make sure that like this doesn't actually hold up, and they want to go back to that new rule that was just recently implemented. So people are like fighting for it. So it's like this weird limbo.
Yeah, I think Maya's point about like, oh, Trump's doing this to help women. Obviously, we want to help women. We are here to support the women, but that excludes so many other groups because Title IX was founded on the basis to eliminate bias due to sex. And that includes gender, preference, orientation. That's everything encompassing under the term. It's not just male and female. That's not what the law was meant to do, and that's what it's kind of being rephrased into, which is what the issue is.
And the whole thing is like anti-trans, basically. He's like, well, I want to revert back because like I don't want to recognize this, basically. And like, oh, they're hurting women. Like, they are not hurting women.
No.
Like, this new law does hurt women, does hurt survivors of literally any kind. And it also just takes away like saying that this can happen to anyone. So it's like, it doesn't matter who you are, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, your ethnicity, your income, like literally any of it can happen to anyone. And I think that's where this is really hard and really sad, because there's a lot of threat to take away federal funding if schools don't abide by new laws, or if they do talk about DEI in any way, but it's like that then means these people aren't seen or recognized at all, and then if something happens to them, which, mind you, if you want to look at the stats, like, it's women of color, they experience the most violence, then it's white women, and then it's transgender students and like queer and anyone in the LGBTQ community. Like, that is where the violence is happening. So it's just like, well, that's where I get so mad. I'm like, but do you think it just doesn't happen to them?
Yeah.
Like, or you think they're the ones like inciting this violence? Like, that's actually the opposite of what's happening. So it's infuriating.
Well, the major issue is that we're told one narrative about domestic violence as a whole, and that's man beats woman, or man assaults woman. And that completely disregards so many other aspects, and that's why so many people are afraid to come forward, don't want to, don't feel like they're going to be believed, because if you don't fit into that very specific narrative, I mean, you look at us, we are two white women who were in clearly abusive relationships, and there were even times where we didn't feel comfortable coming forward because we, you know, invalidated our own feelings. We had the media or, you know, common perception say like, oh, well, it's not really count, like that doesn't qualify. So if we're two white women sitting here having these struggles, how do anyone that's part of those other groups feel?
Right, it just makes it 10 times harder to come forward, and it's so, like, it just gives, like, victim blamey. Like, that's how I feel about it. Like, if you're just disregarding someone and saying, like, this doesn't happen to you, and if it did happen to you, I'm not going to put in like those extra measures of protection. Like that just feels like we've taken 10 million steps back. But in saying all of this, I have had a really hard time in the last couple of weeks since this came out, since everyone's been basically changing like their websites, taking off inclusive language, because when I go into schools, I'm addressing that. Like, I morally cannot go to a school and act like this just doesn't happen for one group of people. Mind you, I'm speaking to hundreds of students at a time sometimes, so it's like statistically,
They're gonna be those few people within that group.
right, and I feel like I'm not being me. I'm not speaking my truth. I'm not like helping everyone if I exclude those things. So I guess I want to like make a statement that like just because that's happening nationally, like MK prevention services is not changing. No. But at the same time, I'm struggling because I am currently talking and working with schools that want me to take out that language.
And it puts you in a tough spot because it's a liability, one, and it's an ethical dilemma for you and the other people involved, because the last thing they want is to be held accountable by, anyone above them for not doing what complies with the law. And that's why it's so frustrating. That's why it's a hard situation to be in. It's
literally the worst. I actually didn't sleep for one of the nights last week before an event that I had, because I was so worried about saying something that would come across as so scandalous for that community. But I also keep trying to go back to the fact that okay, even if I have to change some things, one, I'm not going to change everything. That's absolutely not happening. But if I can take out some of it to make someone feel more comfortable and get me in there to educate and make the change that I can, that's just where I'm at in doing that, which has been really hard for me. But I was also at my first ever all-boys Catholic school, and that was, a really, really proud moment.
Of course.
I felt like that was, okay, even if so much is happening right now, at least I got into an all-boys Catholic school. Come on. I was like, this is actually, crazy that that's happening, because I feel like it used to be so taboo. And it also took 2 years of, back and forth of, come on, let me in here. So I thought that was just, a big accomplishment.
I feel like this is a good time to kind of show gratitude for the male support we have. I mean, Maya's told me stories of, young boys and young men coming up to her after events like this and thanking her and saying they learned a lot. I know we have male listeners. I've met male survivors that have been incredible and said, it helps them just as much as it helps the women we talk to. And that's super important, and we see that. And I know we talked about this maybe 2 episodes ago, that we might not always cater to the male audience directly, but we know that anyone out there can be a survivor, and anyone is as equal of a survivor. Just because you fit a different demographic doesn't make you any less of a survivor, and we recognize that and we appreciate that. And we can only speak to a woman's point of view because we're limited in that way, but we're looking to share male stories and hear those voices as well, which is important in this time.
It's so important, and thank you for saying that. I did get a lot of great feedback after. A lot of young men were very excited to learn about the topics, and a lot came up to me after with really good questions around consent or drinking when we're out at parties, what's exactly the right move here. I did have one question that I thought, I was oh my god, Kay would chuckle at this just because we've talked about this so much in the past. But one of the young men had asked me, how do I have a conversation with my girlfriend around what she wears if I don't like what she's wearing? I had my boyfriend with me too in the audience, and he was sitting with a bunch of women administrators, And afterwards he told me, he was like, oh, when that question was asked, I was like, what is she gonna say? Like, this goes against, like, anything that, you know, like, she stands for or whatever. He was like, what kind of, like, feminist thing is she gonna pull out? He was like, I got a little nervous because I was like, I hope she's not, like, mean to this kid. I'm like, okay, please. Like, I would never. But, I was just like, instantly, I was like, you know what? I would look inward. I was like, you know, I would ask yourself, like, why does dressing provocatively or like having a V-neck, like, why does that make you uncomfortable? You know, like, what is there a lack of trust there? What's like triggering about it before you have these conversations? And I just like went that route and was basically like, and then I just ended it with, we can't control what other people wear. But honestly, everyone was like, that was like a really good answer. But I thought it was kind of funny. And we got, actually, I feel like this is like a bit of a transition. I asked for questions this week, and one of the questions was, what are healthy habits in relationships and tips for reflecting inward? I was like, how perfect.
That is perfect. Same verbiage and everything.
Right?
Yeah. I'm thinking.
Do you want me to start?
You can start.
I was thinking of this, like, obviously there's a million, like, healthy things you can do in a relationship, so I was like, I don't want to do, like, the obvious, like, yeah, we want trust, we want respect, stuff like that. But I was trying to think of other things that are, like, more like actual, like, habits.
Yeah.
Like a weekly check-in.
Yeah. I got very used to and forced myself to be very open about when I was upset about things. So, like, my boyfriend and I will be texting, and he'll say one thing that makes me upset, and then we'll continue on our conversation, and I'll be like, actually, I'm upset because, and I will share why, and it's become so easy to move past little things, and I've told myself, okay, I don't have to be mad at myself for being upset about little things, but I say it gets taken care of, it's done. And even half the time, say we're texting and I'm typing out, by the time I'm done typing it out, or by the time I'm done saying my sentence in person, I'm already not that upset about it.
Right.
But just, like, getting it out there, and then hearing him be like, yeah, that's not what I meant, and me being like, yeah, I kind of took that the wrong way, it helps instantly. And I think that's a healthy habit.
I love that. Well, it's like just healthy forms of communication. So it's, yeah, like, don't let things bottle up inside you. Explaining, like, even, yeah, like I just said, where I'm like, okay, well, why don't you want her wearing that thing? Like, what's actually bothering you here? So it's like, instead of maybe, I think it can be natural to want to go towards, like, a controlling behavior in that way of, like, well, this upsets me, so I don't want you doing this. Instead, like, that is a way to reflect inward of, like, well, before you even say it, like, take a moment to be like, well, what actually upsets me about this?
Yes.
So then you can say, like, hey, when you said or did this, I felt like this, and I think that's because in the past this happened to me or whatever.
And I realize now that maybe that was actually because, and that it comes so naturally when you're being open about everything, even the small things, and I think that really helps. I think, obviously, we talked about practicing gratitude, and obviously that's good for inner reflection. But my favorite thing is treating everything like a date, especially, you know, when you're with your partner, it could be with a friend, like, okay, like, homework date, meal prep date, whatever it is, like, any mundane tasks that you might have to do, if you approach it like it's a great opportunity for quality time together, it's going to make you feel better. It's going to make you feel like you have that quality time with that person, and it's going to, I think, make sure you take the time and the energy to value your time rather than taking it for granted. Because, I mean, a lot of people might think going to the grocery store, it's just something we have to do. But if you think grocery store date, then you're like, okay, I'm being grateful for this time to get done what needs to get done and to spend it with whoever you're with.
Yeah.
Whether that's your partner or not. And then you're more grateful for those things.
I'm going to take, like, a different stance to this one because I love that.
Okay.
But I think that's way more relatable to someone in college versus someone living with their partner for years. Because I'm like, no, we've got to do this. And, like, it kind of is, like, a thing we just have to do. And I think that can also become like, well, it might not be really quality time. Like, are you having like direct eye contact and like asking and like thoughtful questions and like taking moments to like reflect on feelings? So it's like, if you are someone that you're like, no, I do all those things and like I can't find too much gratitude in those moments, I would also recommend like setting out time that is just dedicated as a date and like making that time really special, especially if you do only have like one night a week where you can see this person and make it special, like making those moments extra special.
Too.
That's one something I've been working on. So
that's great.
And yeah, back to like I said weekly check-ins earlier. I think like understanding the way that you need to be loved and the way that your partner needs to be loved, because that can look so different for everyone, aside from again the things that just like make a healthy relationship, like trust, respect, boundaries, all of that stuff. I think understanding love languages, I will like ride that till I die, because I might really, really like acts of service or words of affirmation, whereas my partner needs like 10 hugs in a day and like whatever it is. Because even if you think you're giving them what you need because that's what you love, it might not be the case for them. So checking in and reflecting inward, like back to the question, I think really getting to know yourself and your love languages, and then getting to know your partner's love languages and just what they need. So then each week you can be like, okay, I mean, I'll take from the love languages just because I'm thinking of it. It's called Love Tank. Where's your love tank at? 1 through 10. And if it's not, a 10, it's like, okay, how can we make it a 10? What do you need from me? Just like setting time, I think, to make sure you both are feeling 100% loved.
That is the biggest takeaway I've ever had from any conversation we've ever had. I remember we did the episode in season 1 where we talked about love languages, and you were like, your love language is never what you give, it's what you need to receive. Yeah. And I think about it constantly. Like, we started this conversation and I was already planning on bringing it up before you did, but I just refer back to it constantly. I'm like, okay, my love language is what I give, but that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It matters what my partner's love language is, so I can give that to them. Exactly.
It's so commonly like misconstrued online. Like, my love language is pasta. Like, no, bitch, it's not. It's so true. But I feel like that's a good answer for healthy habits and tips for reflecting inward. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up, because we just had like a quick episode today. I do have, I had one more question which kind of relates to what we were already talking about, which is nice. How do you stay positive in light of everything happening right now in the world? I feel like this is a good ending.
That is a good ending. I mean, committing to your routines and knowing what's best for you is great. If you're feeling healthy in your mind and your body, it's so much easier to take on anything else around you that's making you upset.
1000%. And I also think, like, if you're someone that's really obviously a lot of people are really upset by what's happening right now, and even if you listen to the first half of this and you're like, wow, that's really upsetting, and I feel like we're taking 10 steps back, even with everything I just said, like, people that are in these positions, I would like to believe, and I know that a lot are, still fighting that good fight. Like, just because the law now says this does not mean that if you go to seek justice, that the Title IX coordinator at your school is going to be like, actually, I don't feel like helping you.
Fuck you,
sorry. I'm going to go with, like, people are still going to be including all groups of people, even if it's not specifically written out on that website anymore, specifically in whatever forms you're doing. I want to, like, really believe that you are still going to get, like, gender affirming language, like, respectful language, non-victim blaming language. Again, like, that's what we will continue to practice, and we're fighting the good fight by literally even just talking about it, posting about it. You can sign petitions, you can go protest if you want to, but like even looking into sites and sharing resources, I think brings like power. And then yes, always making sure you have your own like self-care routine. So if you want like that bit of like fighting for justice piece, but also like I need to keep my sanity.
Focus on me. Yeah. I think it's nice and honestly refreshing too to see people saying like, okay, well, these people are always going to exist. I don't know if you saw Hunter Schafer. You know who that is? Okay, so she's from Euphoria. She's the transgender star, and she had to go back to her birth gender on her passport.
Oh, I did see this.
I was reading that, and she released a statement, and she said, you know what? It's fine. Trans people are always going to exist. We're always going to be here. And, like, what it says on my passport, one little word is not going to change that. And as much as it's frustrating and upsetting to have kind of higher powers like shitting on you and saying like invalidating you, to know like, okay, these people are always going to be here is refreshing. And I feel like that can go for everything. Like, there are always going to be people sitting in our positions saying these things, fighting the good fight, like Mya said. And it's like, it's not like any type of force from any amounts of people or anyone with any amount of power is going to change that.
Exactly. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah, like, we're here, we're with you. Like I said, we're not changing who we are, what we do, what we fight for, what we believe in, because we believe in justice.
And the people with those strong values aren't changing either.
Yeah, like, there are plenty of good people in the world. So I think just always reminding yourself of that and that you're included in that is powerful enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
We love you.
Love you. Oh, and next week, check out, we'll do it the next week. Check out our latest interview because it's going to be really amazing.
Really good.
Okay, bye.
Okay, now love you.
Okay.
Yay! I literally was like, oh my god, I have to write this down.
I know, I saw you. I could see it. Keep look at how many she did.
Like, literally every minute. Oh my god.
Till next time, XOXO MK.